Well, welcome back to This Week in Golf on Radio all across Canada. I'm your host, Chris McKee. Appreciate you tuning in. Well, at the start of the week of the Open Championship, Scottie Scheffler made headlines for a speech that he gave that had some people in the golf world scratching their heads, while others were applauding his honesty and introspective. Scottie was very candid in explaining how golf is just not the most important thing in his life. He explains how family and his own happiness is what's most important to him. Maybe that's one of the reasons why he's had so much success, because he doesn't care if he fails or succeeds. That's such an amazing lesson in life to learn. Never mind golf. That's a lesson in life we should all know about. I learned this a long time ago when I decided to put a career as a banker aside at age 21 and go into the music business full time with no job offer or anything. I left a decent paying job at 21 to dive headfirst into the music business because I learned at a very young age that quote unquote failure doesn't really matter. If you never fail, it means you never tried. Then 20 years after working in the music business, I went back to college full time at age 39 to pursue a career in sports media. And here I am talking to you on my nationally syndicated golf radio show. And I've done play-by-play in soccer and basketball for TSN Radio, Fox Sports TV in the United States, as well as One Soccer here in Canada for the Canadian Premier League, as well as calling NBA G League games for News Talk Saga 960 in Ontario. Did the Raptors 905 this past season. I did all of that without any fear of failure, because to me, failure is outside noise. It's someone else's opinion of what success is and not mine. And I think that's a lesson many of you out there can learn. So many people listen to outside noise. And I think once you kind of get to that point in life, and I've gotten there, where I don't care. I don't care what you say. I don't care what you think. And clearly, Scottie Scheffler's there. It appears Scottie's got a similar mentality. Well, here it is. Here's Scottie Scheffler's 5-minute speech at the start of the week of what's important to him in life. Have a listen.
I think it's kind of funny. I think I said something after the Byron this year about it feels like you work your whole life to celebrate winning a tournament for a few minutes. It only lasts a few minutes, that kind of euphoric feeling. And to win the Byron Nelson Championship at home, I literally worked my entire life to become good at golf, to have an opportunity to win that tournament. And you win it, you celebrate, get to hug my family, my sister's there. It's such an amazing moment. And then it's like, okay, now what are we going to eat for dinner? Life goes on. Is it great to be able to win tournaments and to accomplish the things I have in the game of golf? Yeah. I mean, it brings tears to my eyes just to think about, because it's literally worked my entire life to become good at this sport, and to have that kind of sense of accomplishment, I think is a pretty cool feeling. To get to live out your dreams is very special. But at the end of the day, it's like, I'm not out here to inspire the next generation of golfers. I'm not here to inspire somebody else to be the best player in the world, because what's the point? This is not a fulfilling life. It's fulfilling from the sense of accomplishment, but it's not fulfilling from a sense of the deepest, places of your heart. There's a lot of people that make it to what they thought was going to fulfill them in life, and then you get there and all of a sudden you get to number one in the world, and then they're like, what's the point? And I really do believe that, because what is the point? You're like, why do I want to win this tournament so bad? That's something that I wrestle with on a daily basis. It's like showing up at the Masters every year. It's like, why do I want to win this golf tournament so badly? Why do I want to win the Open Championship so badly? I don't know, because if I win, it's going to be awesome for about 2 minutes. And then we're going to get to the next week, and it's going to be like, hey, you won 2 majors this year. How important is it for you to win the FedEx Cup playoffs? And it's just like, we're back here again, So we really do. We work so hard for such little moments. And, I'm kind of a sicko. I love putting in the work. I love being able to practice. I love getting out to live out my dreams. But at the end of the day, sometimes I just don't understand the point, because I don't know if I'm making any sense or not, but am I not? It's just one of those deals. I love the challenge. I love being able to play this game for a living. It's one of the greatest joys of my life. But does it fill the deepest wants and desires of my heart? Absolutely not. I love playing golf. I love being able to compete. I love living out my dreams. I love being a father. I love being able to take care of my son. I love being able to provide for my family out here playing golf. And, every day when I wake up early to go put in the work, my wife thanks me for going out and working so hard. And when I get home, I try and thank her every day for taking care of our son. It's just, That's why I talk about families being my priority, because it really is. I'm blessed to be able to come out here and play golf, but if my golf ever started affecting my home life, or it ever affected the relationship I have with my wife or with my son, that's going to be the last day that I play out here for a living. This is not the be all end all. This is not the most important thing in my life. And that's why I wrestle with, why is this so important to me? Because, I would much rather be a great father than I would be a great golfer. That at the end of the day, that's what's more important to me.
But I think that's why I asked the question the way I did. What is losing like for you?
It sucks. I hate it. I really do.
But that's part of the competition.
That is, and I think that's why we try to work so hard to not lose. But golf's a game where you just lose a lot more often than you win. I mean, that's just a simple part of it. In basketball or football, when there's only two guys out there, you can win a lot more than you lose. But I think I was looking at stats. It was one of the best tennis players. It might have been Federer or Djokovic or somebody. They only won like 48% of their points or something like that. I mean, playing professional sports is a really weird thing to do. Like, it really is, just because we put in so much effort. We work so hard for something that's so fleeting. I mean, it really is. Like, the feeling of winning just doesn't last that long. When I sit back at the end of the year and, I kind of try to reflect on things, like having that sense of accomplishment from winning the Masters tournament, from winning the PGA Championship, I have a deep sense of gratitude and appreciation for it. But it's just hard to explain how it just doesn't satisfy, is how I would describe it. It's an unsatisfying venture. And so I guess what I'm trying to say is, this is not the place to look for your satisfaction. This is something that's where you can have a great appreciation for, and a great amount of thankfulness for being able to do this. And like I said, it's literally one of the most fun things that I can do in my entire life. I love being able to come out here and play golf and compete. But at the end of the day, it's just not what satisfies me.
It's crazy because last year I was criticizing Scottie because he never said anything in his press conferences and rarely gave anything more than like 10, 15-second answers to any question. He was like Sidney Crosby and Wayne Gretzky, who for years just never let you in and allowed their fans any opportunity to know who they are. Like, I've watched Sidney Crosby play hockey for over 20 years. I have no idea who he is as a person. Nothing. Because he never says anything of importance, ever, in any interview. Very short, kind of mumbles, never puts any emotion into any answers, never shows a drop of emotion, even when he's won Stanley Cups. We have no idea who Sidney Crosby is. He could be the best dude ever or the worst dude ever, but we don't know because he doesn't allow you in. And Scottie was doing the same thing for the first couple of years, up until recently, and especially this past week when he really opened up. And I agree and both disagree with what he said there, that he's not here to inspire the next generation of golfers. What's the point? That was his quote. Well, it's not actually his job to inspire anyone. But I do believe Scottie's doing an outstanding job of inspiring based on his actions and giving speeches like we just heard. It will inspire not just athletes, but people of many walks of life. So it might not be his job to do it, but he's absolutely doing it. He is inspiring people. I mean, I was inspired listening to that speech. That's why I'm doing an entire segment on it. And I'm guessing there's people out there that kind of driving along or whatever in your workouts, nodding your head, going, yeah, to a lot of what Scottie said. And it's like, it's not a fulfilling life. Scottie was talking about being a golfer, and I totally get this. Keep in mind, worked in the music business for 20 years, representing some of the biggest artists in the world. I've produced concert tours for Rihanna, the Black Eyed Peas, 50 Cent, Akon, Flo Rida, Wu-Tang Clan, all of them. Dozens, Naughty by Nature, Vanilla Ice, all of them. But I couldn't wait to get home from being on tour with these guys. Yes, I've been on the tour bus with the Wu-Tang Clan, driving across Canada for 6 weeks. But I couldn't wait to get home from tour and sleep in my own bed and hug my kids. Like, none of that other stuff was relevant or means anything to you. And it's hard for people who kind of just have regular jobs. If you're working in insurance or working in a warehouse, I want that life. I want everything they have. And sometimes when you get it, it's not really there. And so I think Scottie inspires, when he performs under pressure. And he almost seems never to get flustered or rattled. Like, when do we see outbursts from Scottie on the course? Almost never. But in comparison, this past week, we had Sergio Garcia smashing his driver into pieces on the second hole on Sunday. I do love Sergio. But Sergio had to finish his round without a driver, played 16 holes without a driver, but he had his best round of the week without it. I think he was 2 under par playing without his driver. But again, there's that emotion. Love Sergio. How many times have we seen him have outbursts, rattled, flustered? Scottie, we never see things like that. I mean, this is a guy that's climbed Mount Everest and then gets to look around at the world and see his perspective that very few of us will ever know. He's climbed that mountain. We haven't. And, sometimes when you get to the top of the mountain, there's secrets up there that the rest of us just aren't aware about. We all think we want these things, and then you get them and you realize it means nothing to you. It only means something to some other people. How can anyone criticize them for putting family first? How many pro athletes have damaged their home lives or relationships with their wives and kids, all in pursuit of quote-unquote greatness on the golf course or the ice or the basketball court or whatever? How many? I mean, every week, this athlete's divorced. This athlete's in a domestic dispute with his wife or girlfriend. It's anyone ever hear of a guy named Tiger Woods? When did he ever say that family was the most important thing to him? Anytime between 1997 and 2007. Never. I mean, he may say it now because he's had time to spend with his kids, but only because of injuries. If Tiger never had all the surgeries and injuries, I highly doubt he's at home hanging out with Charlie and his daughter Sam, and he'd be out there grinding on the PGA Tour, still trying to win more tournaments and trying to beat Jack's record. It's only recently that Tiger's had a different perspective in life where he's saying normal stuff, where it is about family and it is about his kids and it is about being his dad. We never heard that in 2002. It was, I want to be the greatest. I want to beat Jack's records. I want to be this. It was you would never hear Tiger at his peak say anything like what Scottie just said this week. Golf is not the most important thing in Scottie's life, whereas golf is the most important thing in Tiger Woods' life. I think it's even more important than his kids. He may say it's his kids, but his actions say different. Scottie'd much rather be a great father than a great golfer. That's his quote. That's what's important to me, he says. I can relate. Like I said, being in the hockey change room, tying my son's skates, or standing on the sidelines cheering on his soccer game, those were the greatest moments of my life. People couldn't understand that when I would be on tour with these rappers and they'd see me miserable, kind of upset or a little down that day. I'm like, I want to get home. I'm missing my son's hockey game. Knowing, just seeing his face when he came off the ice, knowing his dad was there to cheer him on. When I look back, the greatest moments of my life are not being on tour with Grammy winners or hanging out backstage at this festival and this concert. They were fun. They were fun moments. The greatest moments of my life were sitting watching my son's soccer practice at some random field, in the middle of Scarborough somewhere, or at a hockey rink at 8 a.m. Talking about, my son and I used to have this thing when we tie his skates. We sit and talk college football, college basketball, even though it was a hockey rink. He'd ask me a million questions. I think he just wanted to talk to his dad, and he knew that I loved college football and college basketball. So somewhere in my son's mind, he'd be like, oh, well, maybe if I get my dad talking about this, we'll have a good conversation. And to me, those are the greatest moments of my life. Not winning, being the, booking agent and concert promoter of the year at the CBC Urban Music Awards, which I was back in 2005. My peers voted me the best in the country at what I do. And the real moments are being back home with my son and my family. That's what gave me true happiness. Now, speaking of that, I'll take a little sidetrack. So last week, I didn't, or was it the week before? I didn't do much of a show because I did an intro and then just kind of played some best of because my son left. My 21-year-old son has left to join the Army. He's doing basic training right now as you listen to this. He's somewhere in Quebec, just outside of Montreal, doing his basic training for 4 weeks. And then following that, he'll move to Kingston, Ontario, where he's going to be in the Royal Military College for the next 4 years. He's going to be an RMC. And so the emotion for 2 weeks, the 2 weeks leading to him, he left last Saturday. We had our last Friday night together, went to kick the soccer ball around, and I bawled my eyes out the entire hour we were out kicking the soccer ball around. Driving to and from work, I'm a news anchor for 3 different radio stations just east of Toronto. That's my day job, news anchor, reporter. Driving to and from work for that hour, I was bawling my eyes out, no joke, every single day for 2 weeks straight, knowing that my son's leaving, and flashing back to all those great moments in life that we had and the father-son relationship. And so it's been really devastating. I'm finally back to normal. I've had a week now. He's gone. I've been texting with him. Seems to be doing all right, doing the basic training. Thinks he's made a good choice. So knock on wood, all is good. But so I can totally relate. When I'm thinking back at life, thinking back the moments with my son, not hanging out with a rapper. But anyways, back to Scottie. So he gave that 5-minute speech at the start of the week. And then he follows up after his win on Sunday, and he doubled down on his comments, explaining how golf is just not the most important thing in life to him. Have a listen.
I think we live now in a day and age of where, clickbait is kind of what people look for, and you can shorten a 5-minute clip into, 3 words. I think really underestimates what I was trying to communicate. Maybe I didn't do as effective of a job of what I would have hoped to in communicating that, but, at the end of the day, I have a tremendous amount of gratitude towards moments like these. I've literally worked my entire life to become somewhat good at this game, to be able to play this game for a living, and it's one of the great joys of my life being able to compete out here and to be able to win the Open Championship here at Portrush is a feeling that's really hard to describe. I'm very fortunate to be able to come out here and live out my dreams. I grew up a kid in Texas that wanted to play professional golf. I grew up wearing pants to the golf course because that's what I wanted to do. I saw professional golfers like Justin Leonard, Harrison Frazier, those types of guys on TV wearing pants, and I was like, I want to be like those guys. So I used to wear pants to grow up to play golf. And it'd be 100 degrees out. I'd be way too hot. People would make fun of me. But that's what I wanted to do. I wanted to be a professional golfer, so I wore pants. And I don't know why I'm so lucky that I get to live out my dreams, but it's something that I'm very grateful for. And so if somebody's going to listen to the comments I had this week, I would encourage them to listen to all of it. And hopefully I did a good job of communicating that, yeah, this is amazing to win the Open Championship, but at the end of the day, having success in life, whether it be in golf or work or whatever it is, that's not what fulfills the deepest desires of your heart. Am I grateful for it? Do I enjoy it? Oh my gosh, yeah, this is a cool feeling. I can't wait to get home and celebrate this championship, with the people that have kind of helped me along the way. But at the end of the day, it doesn't fulfill the deepest desires of my heart. And but it's just tough to describe when you haven't lived it. Something I actually talked to Shane about this week was, just because you win a golf tournament or accomplish something, it doesn't make you happy. It doesn't. Maybe for a few moments, maybe for a few days, but at the end of the day, there's more to life than playing golf. But I'm pretty excited to go home and celebrate this one.
It's rare to hear an athlete at the top of his game so openly admit that external success doesn't equate to internal satisfaction. Scheffler's message speaks to anyone chasing success and finding the emotional payoff lacking. It's a universal struggle he showed and that many of us can share. What stood out from his comments wasn't like a lack of ambition, but a commitment to values beyond golf. An evolving view of success that places relationship fulfillment above personal glory. That's what's impressive about what Scottie was saying. Scottie's 5-minute speech was less about golf and more about life. Yes, he cherishes the thrill of competition, but recognizes its emotional emptiness. Yeah, he works tirelessly and dreams of greatness, but he knows it won't satisfy his soul. Ultimately, family, his wife Meredith, his son Bennett, that's what gives him context and meaning in his life and his journey. And so I just tip of the cap, respect to Scottie Scheffler. It's one of the most powerful things I've ever heard any athlete speak and say. And so that's why I want to dive into it pretty extensively here on This Week in Golf, because we don't get that kind of perspective from many golfers, never mind the best in the world and the best of his generation right now. So thank you, Scottie Scheffler. We'll stick around for my next segment. We're going to hear some reaction from many of the world's best on what they thought of Scottie's performance, and not just this past week at the Open Championship, but over the past few years. You hear from Rory, Xander Schauffele, Jordan Spieth, and a bunch of others. Don't forget, drop me a follow on X or Twitter at Mr. McKee, and subscribe to This Week in Golf in podcast version on Spotify, iTunes, iHeartRadio, and plenty more. I'm Chris McKee. You're listening to This Week in Golf on radio all across Canada.